Is a puddle of Traditions paint that is used by itself, put on the surface. This palette has been out for several days. This puddle here is without the medium, and this is with the new medium. And you will see here, if I was to wet this, I can't activate the paint as readily as I would over here. See, this has been set. But with watercolors, we want to emulate a lot of the traditional watercolor techniques. And this paint has been mixed with the watercolor medium, and I'm going to show you here how easy it is to activate the paint. See, I can remove that paint and turn it back into a beautiful paint to do transparent watercolor techniques with. Now, just imagine if this paint is dried on your palette, you can come back in several days later, just add a little bit of water to it, and reconstitute the paint like this, which really allows you to do lots of wonderful transparent techniques. So that's just showing you the benefits of the medium. Now, some artists are already using Traditions paint as a watercolor without the medium. This new medium that we have added is to expand the capabilities of the paint by making it more transparent and to afford you the ability to lift off and to reconstitute the pigment for watercolor techniques. Look at that, how beautiful. It just flows right back into a nice watercolor. So you're not wasting any paint. So now I'm going to show you how to mix your puddles of paint to set up your palette. I'm going to bring my palette in here a little closer so you can see. And the tools that I'm going to use for this are your standard wax palette, a multimedia palette, and a palette knife. And this is one of the tools that I did not describe to you in the supplies, but this is my favorite type of palette knife. You can pick this up in just about any art supply store. It's just got a real thin, flexible quality to it. And what I like about this is after mixing the paint, then I can just transfer the paint easily over to my surface that I'm going to work with. So I'm going to put out a puddle of Yellow Deep, and to that I'm going to add an equal proportion of the watercolor medium. Now remember that the watercolor medium is a little more fluid than the paint. The paint definitely has more loft, it's got more substance to it than the watercolor medium. You notice that this flows. So when you put out equal amounts, remember that this puddle of the medium is going to appear a little bit larger than this one, but the volume is about 50-50. And the most important point that I can tell you about this is you really have to mix the two together. The reason you want to do this is you want to coat the binder and the pigment with the medium. You mix very, very well so that you know the two have been totally combined. When I was first playing with the two, what I found that I was doing is just, artist laziness. I was just taking the back of my brush and swizzling the two together just like this. And it did not work or perform in the same manner as using the palette knife. So this is trial and error that you discover kind of in the lab, but you really do find out what works, and this is the best way to mix the paint together. See, now both are completely mixed together and nice and fluid. Now to get it over here, all I do is I pick it up like this, and I go over, and it just runs right off of my knife. And there's no waste because you're able to pick up everything. And this would be your fresh puddle of paint. Now, if you're setting up a palette with the full range of colors and you're going to be putting them in your palette, a full palette like this, you will mix enough for all your colors and you can save them in here. This would be for mixing just small amounts of color, this palette, but this would be your sort of your master reservoir to hold all your colors. I'm just doing this for the camera so that you can see how to mix one single color. And there we have it. That's how you mix your colors together. One thing I will point out to you that is a good little tip for those of you who are just going to experiment with this medium is I will show you here, these paints are several days old. They were sitting in this palette. But look at the creamy consistency of the paint with the watercolor medium in them. It has been covered, and I can just take a little bit of this color, transfer it over to my palette like this, recover my master reservoir with the lid, and then all I need to do is take a little bit of water with my eyedropper. I can add water to this, and now I'm going to create my watercolor paint. I blend this really well together, mixing the water, and you will notice the pigment dissolves almost instantly. Everything dissolves in the water. So now I have a beautiful fluid, juicy mixture of paint to start my watercolor painting. And I would do this for just about every color that I'm going to require for a painting. I would take a little bit from my master reservoir right here, take a little bit of the color, transfer it to here, thin it out with a little bit of water, and I can continue painting. Let's take a look for a second at how I preserve my little palette. If I've finished painting for the day, this is what I do. I take my palette, I'll move this aside. I take my palette and I just put it, you can put it in any kind of plastic bag. This was a bag that a mat, cut mat had come in, and I thought it was a neat little bag, but a Ziploc bag would work the same way. And I can slip my palette into this bag at night if I'm still working on the same painting. You can see this here, and all I need to do, the bag would prevent the colors from drying out, and you can see everything is still nice and moist. So I can come along the next day and start painting again. See? Slip this down. See, I can start painting right away. Now, if a color has dried out completely, like down at the end here, I notice this had probably dried out before I even put the palette away. You can see that all I need to do, add a little bit of water to it, and look at that, it reconstitutes just beautifully. Take the tip of your brush and just agitate the paint, and there I have a lovely toned green that I was working with yesterday, but I've reconstituted that color. Here's another little dried puddle. If I like that hue and I want to reactivate it again, all I do, add a little bit of water. And because the watercolor medium has been mixed with it, I've got great watercolor paint to work with.